My beloved is to enter the monastic life. My imperial brother told him, either marry me, or remain unmarried for life. The general, with his unyielding resolve, ascended Lingzhou Temple the very next day. Later, clad in my wedding robes, I journeyed north for a political marriage. He spat blood and snapped his prayer beads. When my brother asked the general if he would marry me, he was midway through writing the character for harmony. The general had just returned from the northern frontier, dust-covered and weary. Kneeling before the desk, he remained silent for a long time before finally uttering 3 resolute words. This subject refuses. I stood outside the hall, clenching my sleeves. My brother paused his writing. Zicheng, Ahua has always treated you differently from others since childhood. This time, she insists on going for the marriage alliance. Only you can change her mind. Not long ago, envoys from Hujie and Jiang successively arrived, requesting to marry a princess of Daliang. My brother's children were barely of school age. Among Daliang's princesses, I was the only one eligible for marriage. Yet war looms between Hujie and Jianghu. Hujie's might demands concession. Jianghuo's proximity makes it a matter of mutual survival, whether the princess marries, and to which kingdom. Signals Liang's stance, a dilemma on both fronts. My brother urgently summoned General Mu Pingchuan, commander of the northern frontier, back to court, demanding he marry me swiftly, but he refuses. The general's voice echoed through the hall with unwavering conviction. When your majesty ascended the throne, the realm was in utter chaos. To unify the southern borders, did you not sever personal ties and forge alliances through marriage? Without stability for the nation and its people, where would there be room for romantic attachments? Princess, you surely understand this principle deeply, which is why you resolved to enter into this marriage of alliance. Struck at his core, my brother flew into a rage, hurling his brush with such force it struck the general squarely. Mu Pingchuan, she is my only sister. You will either marry her or remain unmarried for life. I refuse to see Ahua bound by duty and status, entangled by family vengeance and national grievances like I am. You decide. The general made no move to dodge, and ink splattered across his forehead. He emerged looking utterly ridiculous. I had waited outside the hall for a long while before offering him a gentle smile. It's been a long time. Has your cold improved, General? He bowed his head, his eyes lowered, and returned the greeting with a voice as still as water. Thank you for your concern, Your Highness. I am much better now. He lied. Before he arrived, I had questioned his personal guard, Yan Gon. He was not well, not at all well. The northern frontier was bitterly cold. Now, in the depths of winter, he relied on specially formulated pills to sustain himself for battle. Those potent medicines, used too often, damaged his very foundation. I drew a small jar of osmanthus wine from my sleeve and offered it to him. This batch is superior to any sent to the northern frontier before. Try it, General. These past months, ID made frequent visits to the Imperial Medical Academy for guidance. Comparing his existing formula, ID added several new herbs to the wine, ones that fortify the constitution and dispel cold, studying how to preserve both its flavor and medicinal potency. He kept his head bowed, neither rising nor accepting the wine. His refusal spoke volumes. The maid Shanhe whispered a reminder. General Mu, the princess bestows this wine to reward your border labors. Please accept it quickly and do not disappoint Her Highness' kindness. Only then did he extend his hand, though his head remained bowed. As I handed him the jar, my fingertips lightly brushed his palm, dropping a slip of paper. The note bore no words, only a sketch of an osmanthus blossom and a full moon. He understood my meaning. Late into the night, I waited beneath the crooked-necked osmanthus tree south of the city. We drank cup after cup of wine. Once upon a time, beneath this very tree, we had been ordinary folk for a fleeting moment in the tavern. We watched plays, sipped tea, listened to the hubbub, observed the people's livelihoods, and gauged the pulse of public sentiment. The common folk spoke freely. They said the new emperor governed with clarity and decisive action. From high-ranking ministers to lowly clerks, all carried out his policies diligently. Now, in Great Liang, scholars, farmers, artisans, and merchants were all valued equally. The nation's revival was imminent. They spoke of the general's valor and cunning, who unified the southern frontiers without shedding blood and now guards the northern borders, repeatedly thwarting the Huiji tribe's southward ambitions. Once the treasury is replenished, he shall march north to avenge the humiliation at Changmen Pass and reclaim the 13 northern provinces lost during the previous emperor's reign. At times, they also discuss me. They say Princess Anning possesses remarkable insight and poise, holding her own in court debates. She has reformed rice and millet cultivation and established schools for women. Truly a remarkable woman of her generation. Alas, the Longmen Palace incident marred her beauty and tarnished her reputation, leaving her without a consort to this day. I gently traced the 3 purplish red scars beneath my right eye, each the size of a mung bean. They were inflicted that night of the palace coup, when King Hujie burned me with incense sticks held before the Buddha's shrine. As for virtue, surviving such chaos, regardless of the truth, leaves one's virtue utterly shattered. Back then, General Mu Pingchuan dipped his finger in tea and wrote the characters for heart and action on the table. Life spans but decades. Even the fairest beauty ends as a handful of dust. What endures for eternity lies beneath this mortal shell. As for virtue, one must first survive to claim anything else. His words always carried such profound clarity and worldly wisdom. Perhaps my gaze upon Mu Pingchuan was too direct then, for His Majesty saw right through me. After that, whenever the general returned to the capital for duty reports, His Majesty would always arrange opportunities for us to be alone. Even the imperial princess residence and the general's mansion were built back to back, ostensibly to facilitate Princess Anning's martial arts training. My brother paid no heed to others' murmurs of approval or disapproval. When I agreed so swiftly to the marriage alliance, my brother was utterly astonished. After all, the grain and military supplies transported north from Liang were not only fully subsidized by the princess residence, but I also always slipped in my own addition, sometimes osmanthus wine, sometimes newly concocted medicinal pills, sometimes various letters. Internally, I cultivated literary and poetry societies, navigating and persuading among the women of the imperial clan and officials. Externally, I forged ties with wealthy merchants and tycoons, half persuading through subtle pressure, to raise military funds for the Great Liang's northern frontier army. Though my body was in the capital, my heart was in the northern frontier. My intentions were as plain as day. My brother always believed that all these years, the general remained unmarried and I remained unwed. Half because the realm was unsettled, half because we were too ashamed to speak of it. When he asked why, I revealed only half the truth. Your Majesty governs the realm. The general wages war across the land. How could a princess be confined to romantic entanglements? To do so would make us no different from our father, who clung to a corner of peace, indulged in pleasure, and ultimately lost our lands. As Princess of Great Liang, supported and revered by the people, I must fulfill my duty as a princess. The other half, however, was because the general held no place for me in his heart. Or rather, he held no one in his heart. I never intended for him to know about the marriage alliance. I never expected him to return so swiftly. He must have journeyed day and night, racing against the stars and moonlight. Overjoyed, I lifted my skirt and ran to him, only to be disappointed. Knowing he felt nothing for me was one thing. Hearing him state it plainly was another. I leaned against the osmanthus tree, drinking wine, occasionally flicking pebbles into the clear stream. Why did I still wish to see him? Perhaps it was sheer unwillingness to accept it. The common folk gathered in the tavern discussed the princess marriage alliance. One spoke with righteous indignation. How dare they marry our great Liang princess to the Hujie? The humiliation at Changmen Palace remains unavenged, and the 13 northern provinces still suffer in flames and water. How can we let them dishonor us again? Make our princess their concubine. This is utter disgrace. Another echoed. In my opinion, we should muster the nation's strength and march north to drive them back into the desert. One voice retained reason. War exhausts the people and drains resources. It's no simple matter. Besides, the Hujia want far more than just a princess. They aim to sever Jiangguo's retreat, while reminding us not to overreach or choose the wrong side. I listened in silence, drinking cup after cup. Clouds drifted past the moon's edge. Pebbles skimmed the water, sending ripples across the surface. He took my letter but never came to the rendezvous. A hangover, a splitting headache, a night filled with absurd dreams. I summoned Shanhe and teased her. Yesterday's wine was too potent. I only had a few cups, yet I was drunk. In my dreams, I did many absurd things. Little he, guess what? I pinned him to the bed and thoroughly took advantage of him. Shan's face flushed red then paled, hesitating to speak. When I pressed her, her eyes darted nervously, and she remained silent. Suddenly, as if remembering something, she said, "The second daughter of the Prime Minister has been kneeling outside the hall for nearly half an hour, asking if I might see her. Why is she kneeling before me?" Qi Pingting had always avoided me, for she, like me, had long harbored feelings for the general. She considered herself far more beautiful than me, with talents no less than mine, though her birth was slightly less noble. Seeing my imperial brother openly matchmaking us, and the chancellor unwilling to intervene on her behalf, she often lamented her fate and pitted herself. 4 years ago, when the general marched west to pacify the frontier, I saw him off as far as I could, and he followed just as far. In the end, neither of us managed to bid him farewell alone. 2 years ago, when the general was stationed at the northern frontier, the scene repeated itself. Everyone has the freedom to pursue their own affections, and I bear her no ill will. Moreover, the chancellor prioritizes the welfare of the people and honors the virtuous, rendering great service to the state. During the great turmoil, it was he who navigated and persuaded among the powerful aristocratic families. My brother's ascension to the throne owes half its credit to the chancellor. Moreover, in the matter of raising military funds, he contributed both wealth and effort without hesitation. Thus, I never held minor disagreements against her. Shanhe attended to my ablutions and dressing. She refuses to speak, only weeps. Your Highness should go see for yourself. They say the second daughter of the Chancellor's household smiles with both playful scorn and genuine joy, and cries with tears like pear blossoms in the rain. Truly a sight to move even me. Your Highness is magnanimous. Please pardon Brother Zicheng. Zikonga courtesy name I've never once addressed him by. I disliked her intimate address, snapping my sleeve to interrupt. The general is wise and valiant, holding his head high before heaven and standing upright before men. What matter requires this prince's pardon? I heard Brother Zicheng refuse to marry the princess. His Majesty flew into a rage yesterday. This morning, Brother Zicheng went to Lingzhou Temple to shave his head and become a monk. When I galloped to Lingzhou Temple, Mu Pingchuan knelt before the abbot. Buddhist chants filled the air, incense smoke curling upward. His worldly hair had already fallen, a mass of jet-black strands. I roared, "Absurd!" Snapping off a withered leaf, I flicked it to knock the burning incense from the abbot's hand just as he was about to touch it to the monk's forehead. He lifted his gaze to meet mine, his lips inexplicably swollen and split. A pang of guilt struck me last night in my dream. I gripped his wrist and bitten his lip fiercely. Could it be? His eyes were clear, his voice crisp. Your Highness, have you seen my choice clearly? He had truly renounced the world. The northern frontier. Does the general abandon it too? How could the esteemed general of the northern frontier, the nation's pillar and hope of the realm, shave his head to become a monk? Mu Pingchuan tugged at his lips and said, "His Majesty has not relieved me of my military duties." So that was it. This so-called monastic life was merely meant to sever my lingering attachment. The abbot pressed his palms together. Layman, Your worldly ties remain unresolved. Once settled, come seek this humble monk again. With that, he murmured, all conditioned phenomena are like dreams, illusions, bubbles, and shadows. Like dewdrops and lightning flashes, thus should they be perceived, growing fainter as he walked away. Transcending the mundane, my monastic vows remained unfulfilled. Me shaved head, a wasted gesture. His chronic cold ailment made him most vulnerable to the chill. This winter, I thought, he would need several thick felt hats, lined with rabbit fur, outer layer of sheep's wool, and breathable, wind-proof leather in between. At this very moment, I found myself thinking of knitting hats for him. How utterly pathetic. Amidst the faint strains of chanting, he passed by me, his demeanor relaxed and natural, as if everything were but a trifling matter. On the mid-mountain steps, I stopped him. Where was the general last night? Why the wound at your lip? His expression unchanged. Your servant drank at the Spring Breeze Pavilion. The wound at your lip, was it bitten by a maiden of the Spring Breeze Pavilion? Your servant was drunk. I cannot recall. Last night in my dream, crimson night curtains swayed in the breeze as he and I were deeply entwined. Yet upon waking, I found myself safely in my own chambers. In dreams, one knows not they are a guest. One indulges in fleeting pleasure. I had a ridiculous dream last night. In it, there was the general. He lifted his gaze to meet mine. Your Highness, since you know it was but a foolish dream, you should laugh it off upon waking. I drew closer, staring into his eyes. These eyes, now as still as an ancient well, had been a raging sea last night. What is real? What is false? Does the general truly hold only the mountains and rivers of this realm in his heart? Nothing else. He stepped back and bowed. Your Highness. Such words are inappropriate. It is His Majesty who holds the realm in his heart. I merely guard a corner of the northern frontier. You would rather become a monk than marry me. He lifted the corner of his lips, his expression serene. When we first met, I gave you my answer. Do you not remember? When I first met Mu Pingchuan, I was the most inconspicuous princess in the entire palace. My mother, the Empress Dowager, refused to engage with the emperor. Day after day, she sat before the Buddha shrine, beads in hand, chanting sutras. She sought neither power nor favor, rarely even leaving her courtyard. I was confined within those four walls, reading whatever texts my mother ordered me to study: military treatises, historical records, agricultural manuals, medical texts, miscellaneous writings, reading so much and so widely. I sometimes grew bored, so I'd often sneak out to find someone to play with. One year during the Shaanxi festival, the Queen Mother hosted a birthday banquet for my elder brother, the Crown Prince. Many young nobles and ladies attended. I heard the banquet was grand, filled with novel amusements. My curiosity got the better of me, so I hid in a broad-leaved tree by the palace garden wall to peek inside. My brother, now His Majesty, called out loudly, Zichong, come spar with me. The spring light was warm, the breeze intoxicating. The young general, clad in loose black robes, wine in hand, took the sword and leapt out of the pavilion. Amidst the swirling petals of the flowering quince, he danced with his sword. His swordplay blended fierce strength with subtle grace. Utterly captivating, his carefree form glided and shifted amidst the boundless spring scenery. When the duel ended, he tossed aside his sword, teased his brother about his lack of progress, then tilted his head back to gulp wine. I watched silently, as if the entire world contained only this one carefree, radiant youth. Suddenly, he looked my way. Our gazes collided like duckweed drifting in a vast river. A line of poetry flashed through my mind: most profound is the gaze that holds infinite meaning. As if we met in a past life, my brother called out loudly, Little Seventh, why are you up in the tree? Come down quickly. I have your favorite sugar cakes. Startled, I scrambled down. landing awkwardly and becoming the palace's laughingstock. Mother Empress punished me with 3 days of kneeling in the Buddhist hall. My brother came to plead for me, deceiving mother by saying I'd climbed the tree to retrieve Princess Jiaxiang's kite. It wasn't entirely untrue before my fall. I had indeed knocked down a kite. While my brother spoke with our mother, I used the silver coins I'd saved for over half a year to trade with his personal eunuch for news of the general. His name is Mu Pingchuan. Courtesy name Zichong, the sole son of the valiant general of the Dingyuan Marquisate. Raised on the frontier since childhood, he excels in both civil and military arts, possessing outstanding virtue and talent. At just over 10 years old, he joined his parents in the military. He once led a small cavalry deep into enemy territory, destroying their grain stores and cutting off their supplies. Without a single battle, he forced the enemy to retreat over 300 li. Becoming a legendary tale in the army, he has many friends and followers. Now only 16, he already shows the bearing of a great general. That very night, I told my mother that studying books was like practicing warfare on paper, and I wanted to learn martial arts. To my surprise, she agreed without hesitation, assigning Aunt Yuli to instruct me. Yet my foundation was weak. Though I memorized his sword techniques and practiced daily, I could only mimic the superficial form, never grasping his spirit or power. Still, I believed that through relentless training, I could achieve something. The second time I saw him was a year later, in the snow outside the palace hall. Hearing Head entered the palace, I dropped my chopsticks in excitement, skipped my meal, and dashed out through the snow. Of course, I couldn't see him or speak to him. I only wanted to glimpse him from afar, to see if the youth who once rode a silver-saddled white horse through spring breezes had grown even more radiant. But what I saw, he knelt in the snow, clad in plain hemp robes. The sky stretched vast and boundless, his figure utterly alone. All was white, a desolate expanse. That lonely, desolate silhouette sent a tremor through my heart. Court attendants said his father and mother had colluded with the Hujie tribe. His Majesty issued an edict of punishment, ordering them escorted back. Yet on the journey to the capital, they, fearing their crimes, set themselves ablaze. Mu Pingchuan knelt in the snow for 3 days, weeping blood as he pleaded his case. He declared his parents never betrayed the empire, that the murderers had ulterior motives. Seeking to silence witnesses, he vowed to present crucial evidence, begging my father, the emperor, to thoroughly investigate the mastermind behind it all. The emperor refused to see him. I knew he spent his nights in the palace chambers, listening to the newly arrived noble consort sing songs of the south, consuming the elixir of immortality freshly presented by the Taoist priest. My elder brother pleaded, saying the valiant general's entire family served the throne with loyalty and patriotism. The old marquis had sacrificed himself for the nation. The valiant general and his wife had guarded the frontier for over 20 years, never allowing the Hujie tribesmen to gain an inch. How could they possibly betray the country? Now, framed and killed, father not only refused to pursue the true culprits but instead wallowed in debauchery. At the height of his passion, my brother declared, "If this continues, heaven will destroy Great Liang." Enraged beyond control, father seized his sword and wounded my brother, banishing him to a desolate southern wilderness to fend for himself. For the first time, I understood the agony of heartbreak and helplessness for the general. And for my brother, it was also the first time I began to truly scrutinize my father. Once, when drunk, my mother confided to Aunt Yuli, "He is unfit to be a ruler, unfit to be a husband, unfit to be a father." In my memories, my father was not always this way. He had once been a man of deep concern for his country and its people, full of vigor and ambition, wielding life and death with authority that struck fear into all corners. When did he begin to change? I do not know. I only know that in this moment, my father truly was unfit. I gathered all the silver trinkets I'd saved over 2 years and begged the eunuch outside the hall to deliver a heavy cloak, a portable stove, and warm soup. My elder brother still had the Empress Dowager sending people to care for him, but in the general's household, he was all alone, dressed so lightly. How could he endure this bitter winter? When these items reached Mu Pingchuan, he turned and glanced at me. In the snow-blown cold night, our gazes met from afar. His eyes no longer held the light they had 2 years prior. After that blizzard, he was stripped of his military command and left the palace alone. With his parents murdered and no avenue for vengeance, he too was demoted to commoner status. That day, standing atop the high city walls, I watched him stagger step by step toward the gates of the palace. Suddenly, a courage and impulse I'd never known before surged within me. I rushed into my father's bedchamber, threw myself to the ground, and banged my head 3 times on the floor. Without regard for the consequences, I spoke the words I had to say. When I was young, Father, you taught me that governing with virtue is like the North Star, it stays in its place while all other stars revolve around it. But now those loyal to the throne meet no good end. Those who speak truth are banished to the frontiers. Those who harm others walk free. Those who suffer wrongs have nowhere to seek justice. Why have you become this way, Father? Father's rage boiled over, and he struck my hairpin loose with a single blow. Insolent! You are as defiant and untamed as your mother. I have tolerated and indulged you. Yet you dare to overstep your bounds to this extent. Do you not know how a subject and a son ought to behave? How dare an ignorant woman like you meddle in the affairs of state? Covering my face, I stubbornly retorted, what of it if I am a woman? Your humble daughter knows only the bonds of sovereign and subject, father and son. Men and women alike are subjects of Great Liang. Great Liang belongs to all under heaven, not to your majesty alone. If your majesty grows weary, why not entrust the realm to my royal brother? That day, Father Emperor flew into a rage. With a single imperial decree, he confiscated and burned every scroll I had ever read. He declared Mother Empress had failed in her duties, stripped her of her consort title, and confined us forever within the walls of Chang'an Palace, forbidding us to set foot outside. Mother did not blame me for my rashness. Without so much as a flicker of her eyebrows, she calmly pleaded with Father to grant us one mercy, demote us to commoners and release us from the palace. Father smashed every object in Mother's chamber, roaring, "Don't even think about it. Even if you die, you shall die within these palace walls." Only then did I understand why Mother had always loved watching the eagles soaring in the sky. Mother and I were confined for a year in the Chang'an Palace, not a cold palace, yet colder than any, with no books to read. She recounted stories from those she had read. With nothing to do, she personally taught me horse stances, pole-striking drills, and the art of posture and footwork. With nowhere to go, she described to me the mountains, rivers, and landscapes beyond the palace walls. Before, I had only glimpsed the majestic peaks of the 3 mountains and 5 great peaks, or the misty elegance of Jiangnan's water towns. Through Mother's books and poems, hearing her describe them in detail, I longed to sprout wings and fly out of this palace. I asked Mother why she had entered the palace when life outside seemed so joyful. She said, "It is heaven's will. The emperor's command cannot be defied." I have never liked the phrase heaven's will, for it is so unpredictable and treacherous. Take, for instance, what my imperial brother called heaven's will to destroy the great Liang dynasty. It descended with lightning speed, faster than one could cover their ears. In the year Sinwei, chaos erupted at Changmen Gate. Flames engulfed the imperial city. Rivers of blood flowed. My father, hailed daily as 10,000 years, died before reaching his 50th year, pierced by arrows on the dragon throne. His head hung above Changmen Gate. My rebellious uncle, who seized the throne, was betrayed and slaughtered by the Hujia tribes he had allied with before he could even touch its edge. The Hujia were savage, slaughtering palace after palace. None escaped master or servant, young or old. Aunt Yuellen went out to scout for news and never returned. Mother Empress drew the sword hidden behind the Buddha niche and charged out to fight. I tried to help her, but when I faced the enemy, I realized my skills were utterly inadequate against such bloodthirsty demons. The Hujie king, their leader, sneered at my mother. General Helan, long time no see. Your useless husband has already been beheaded by this king. How about I take care of you from now on? My mother's eyes blazed red as she stabbed several attackers with her sword. The Hujie king seized me. General Helan, if you refuse, then your daughter shall serve me. Her features bear a striking resemblance to yours, though I wonder if her bones are as stubborn as yours. Before he finished, he yanked my hair, snatched the incense from the Buddha niche, and pressed it directly against my eye. The searing pain exploded, blood and tears streaming down. I stifled a groan. Gritting my teeth to endure I didn't want to distract my mother, but I heard her wails and shrieks. It was the first time in over a decade I'd seen her tears. I'd always believed she despised father, and by extension, didn't care much for me either. I was wrong. Perhaps the agony was too much. My vision began to blur. Before losing consciousness, I saw my mother discard the sword, kneel before the Hujia man, and beg him to spare me. She smiled at me, mouthing the words, "Live well." When I awoke, I had been tossed into a pile of weeds outside the palace. Several Hujia soldiers jostled each other, eyeing me with ill intent. His Majesty said to let her go. You Goi wouldn't dare. What's there to fear? In this state, she won't live past tomorrow. If not us, someone else will. Such a flawless jade-like body, even disfigured, she'd still be a top-tier beauty. We won't get another chance like this. Clutching my scalded face, tears mingling with blood, I crawled up, clutching clumps of dirt and stones. They closed in, their eyes already stripping me bare. My mind raced. Though I had no weapon, I would fight to the death rather than let them defile me. Amid the blizzard, the clatter of hooves grew louder. A rider charged forth. The leader fired 7 arrows in quick succession, each deadly, each precise. It was Mu Pingchuan. In this age of chaos, our gazes locked once more. His eyes burned with fire, tempered by ice. As if encountering a celestial being, I knelt before him, begging him to save my mother, the Empress. When I left him, he was alone. Yet within a year, he had risen again. Now, with the imperial city in chaos, he was the only one who could save my mother. He looked at me with pity. Your Highness, please compose yourself. Empress Lan is no longer with us. He said she had jumped from the lofty Changmen gate. My mind went blank for a moment before I heard myself say bitterly, I will have my revenge. General, teach me. He helped me to my feet. Your Highness. That blizzard taught me a lesson: revenge cannot be achieved on one's knees. He said that to seek vengeance, one must grow strong, endure in silence, and strike with precision. I took his words to heart. He had gathered his forces and entered to rescue people before the retreat routes were completely sealed off. He came not to aid the emperor, but to save common folk. Together, we rescued people while retreating. Shanhe and Yangon were a pair of homeless children we saved. Before departing, I poured 3 cups of wine toward the Changmen gate and swore an oath with blood. He watched from the side, handing me a handkerchief to wipe the blood. Later, war raged on. Slaughter continued, and the 13 northern provinces fell. The southern lands descended into a state of warring factions vying for power. I followed Mu Pingchuan's group southward, searching for my imperial brother, on the rickety boat fleeing south. Traitorous Liang soldiers searched for me using my portrait to evade detection. Mu Pingchuan wrapped me beneath his blood-soaked cloak. The lingering scent of medicine brought me comfort. The unavoidable closeness of our bodies burned me, sending shivers through the winter moonlight. On a desolate hill by a cold river, moonlight cast its chill. His eyes were as clear as ink. Suddenly, as if possessed, I tilted my head and asked him if he would marry me someday. He paused, gazing into the emptiness over the river, and said solemnly, Your Highness, for one who shoulders the nation's fate and bears a blood feud, The word love is the most unattainable luxury. Back then, I was young and naive, unable to grasp the depth of his words. Now I understand. Yet I have become the very person he described, one who cannot afford the luxury of love. But I lack his unwavering detachment, his monk-like transcendence beyond worldly concerns. I have duties unfulfilled, vengeance unavenged. Yet whenever I see him or think of him, a lingering reluctance and unwillingness still stirs within me. He is different. When hatred fills his heart, he seeks only vengeance. When mountains and rivers occupy his mind, he thinks only of them. His purpose is clear, never muddled by hesitation, like when he stood behind me, teaching me to draw the bow and nock the arrow. My heart fluttered, my hands trembled, yet he remained as steady as a mountain. Your Highness, whatever you do, never let your focus waver. Only with single-minded devotion can you overcome all obstacles. On the stone steps of Lingzhou Temple, before departing, he left only these words. Those who accomplish great deeds are not bound by personal attachments. I know your Highness has already decided on the matter of the political marriage. The path ahead is long, and I shall not be a stumbling block. He knew my resolve was not entirely firm. So he lit the final spark within me. My imperial brother flew into a rage, and my sister Queen summoned me by messenger that very night. When I arrived outside the hall, Mu Pingchuan knelt upon the cold stone floor, his head shaven bare, clad only in plain white robes. The sight was truly infuriating. My brother, unwilling to shatter a teacup, hurled a stack of memorials at Mu Pingchuan instead. Absurd. Unconscionable. This infuriates me. With each curse, another stack of memorials flew. Mu Pingchuan didn't flinch. Taking the blows heeded, I picked up the scattered papers, glimpsing fragments all concerning the marriage alliance. Some weighed the pros and cons, others lodged fierce protests, while still others pleaded with blood-stained tears. I knelt before my imperial brother. Your Majesty need not blame the general. If he refuses to marry me, I too may refuse to marry him. Our realm stands on the brink of collapse. The Hujia have grown formidable, conquering Qin and Zhan one after another. They have devoured our northern territories and now frequently raid our southern borders, with 13 northern provinces yet to be reclaimed. We absolutely cannot afford to lose the south. The Hujia and Jiang states are poised for war. Should Jiang fall, Great Liang cannot remain unscathed. Yet openly courting Jiang risks inviting disaster. Both nations now watch Great Liang's stance on this marriage alliance. Ah Hua proposes this. Let us marry openly to Hujia while secretly allying with Jiang, with an inside and outside force. We await the opportune moment to strike decisively. My royal brother rules the central plains, and you, General, guard our northern frontier. Let me, Ah Hua, negotiate this marriage alliance with the Hujia. For the sake of our Great Liang, let us seize more opportunities for survival. What say you? The only man I ever wished to marry was you, General. Alas, your heart holds vast rivers and mountains, the suffering of countless people. The heavens are wide and the earth is vast. Yet there is no room left for Zhao Hua. In this world, many things can be attained through effort. But love is not one of them, and love is not the only precious thing in this world. I have responsibilities to shoulder and blood feuds to avenge. The general knelt stiffly on the ground, his voice cold and clear. To offer one's life as bait, to feed one's body to the tiger, your highness, noble sacrifice is a great blessing for the nation. The emperor's hair stood on end with rage as he swept aside a table full of memorials. Yet the general continued, the princess is not a reckless person. Your Majesty might consider trusting her this once. My brother refused to listen further and dismissed us. My sister-in-law later told me that night. He stared at the birthday garden scroll painted by the artist, unable to sleep. In the scroll, 17 princes and 9 princesses drank wine, composed poetry, fought crickets, swung on swings, released lanterns, each finding their own joy. Now, only my brother defeated in the martial contest and I, who fell from the tree, remain. The next day, he secretly received the envoy from the kingdom of Jiang. For 3 days and nights, they debated without rest. During this time, he also summoned the chancellor, the Grand Secretary of Military Affairs, and several generals of the northern frontier. My brother asked if I had a clear objective. I replied, slay the rebels, seize the maps, open the city gates, and welcome the Liang army. My brother finally resolved himself. Soon after, an imperial edict proclaimed Princess Anning's marriage alliance with the Huji tribe. Receiving the decree, I stood in the late autumn courtyard, gazing at the green wall separating the two residences. I wondered what the general was doing now, practicing swordsmanship, brewing wine, or reviewing border reports. Just as he once supervised my sword training, I would wield my sword in the courtyard while he brewed tea beneath the eaves, his gaze fixed on his scrolls, yet he'd still call out to correct my mistakes. To catch his attention, I'd deliberately make errors. He never grew annoyed. In the past, I'd always climbed the wall to find him. This time, I merely glanced at the blue tiles atop the wall and walked away. And so, it wasn't until much later that I learned General Mu Pingchuan, commander of the northern frontier, had not been at his residence that day. He had been confined in the inner chamber of Lingzhou Temple for 7 days and nights. Thus, when he appeared in monk's robes, leading a group of martial monks during the marriage alliance procession, I was momentarily unable to comprehend what had transpired. After bidding farewell to my imperial brother and sister-in-law, I scanned the area before boarding the imperial carriage but saw no sign of him. All the princes, ministers, and imperial relatives were present. Even He Pingting, who usually paid me little mind, had come. As I passed by, she tearfully said, "Your Highness' noble sacrifice is beyond my reach. I deeply regret we never grew closer. Those worthless generals are mere clouds. From this day forward, you alone shall be my model." I was both amused and exasperated. The chancellor was always skilled at spinning tales. This was likely his doing. The rest of the crowd wore expressions of sorrow, as if they had already witnessed my fate. The king of Hujia was brutal and heartless, viewing women as mere playthings. What good end could a princess from a defeated nation possibly meet? But I disliked this funeral-like atmosphere and ordered Shanhe to lower the curtain. Before the curtain closed, I saw a monk twirling prayer beads, holding a chanting bowl as he walked straight past. It was the general. The face wasn't his, but I knew it was him. Just as I reached to lift the curtain, he spoke to stop me. "This humble monk, Wu Xin, accompanies your highness north to Hujia to pray for your blessings." Amit Ba. I recalled that day at Lingzhou Temple when the general had asked me, "Your highness, do you see clearly the choice your servant must make?" I thought I did. Only now did I realize the general stood shrouded in thick fog. Though I held a lantern to search for him, I could not even discern his outline. The procession exited the city, where the attendants changed into lighter attire. Those who had walked mounted horses. The general remained nearby, his figure shadowy behind the palanquin curtain. Rain fell when we reached the first post station, while others huddled under the eaves. I watched him meditating in the pavilion from a second-story window. Monks sat in a circle around him, not chanting sutras, but discussing matters. I sent Shanhe to invite him. He sat opposite me, damp with moisture. Has the general revealed the purpose of his northern expedition? He raised an eyebrow and smiled. Your Highness recognized me so quickly. Shanhe looked from me to him in shock, then wisely withdrew, closing the door behind him. I wanted to say I'd recognize him even if he were reduced to ashes, but it felt unlucky. So I held my tongue. He pulled a copper scroll from his robe, extracted several sheets of oiled paper, and spread them on the table. Your Highness' ambitions cannot be achieved by one man alone. These few are trustworthy. The paper bore the names of several former ministers of the Liang kingdom. This half of the map was smuggled out from the camp of the right-wise king of the Hujie tribe. I have verified its authenticity. The Liang army has deployed its eastern forces according to this plan. Once we obtain the other half of the map from within the palace, we can strike their border fortress by surprise, severing their communications. With the Jiang kingdom tying down the forces of the left-wise king in the west, we can overcome the odds and achieve victory despite our numerical disadvantage. As for the other half of the map, Your Highness has made ample preparations. This mission is certain to succeed. After obtaining the map, Your Highness may disguise yourself as a novice monk and flee. The assassination of the king of Hujia is perilous beyond measure. Do not attempt it again. Once Your Highness leaves the palace, I shall settle all matters myself. That night, we talked long into the candle's glow. Only then did I realize he understood my ambitions, knew my plans, and had long since made corresponding preparations. I asked him, was this journey for me, or for the great Liang? He replied, does it matter? The farther north we traveled, the colder the weather grew, and the fewer the postal stations became. Sometimes we lit campfires, pitched tents, spread dry grass, and slept in the wilderness. I worried his cold ailment might worsen, watching him constantly, yet seeing no change, uncertain if had improved or taken more of those potent pills. When we reached Tongshan near Yen City, we encountered vast natural hot springs. Ancient texts claimed hot springs held exceptional healing power for those afflicted by cold ailments. At my command, the soldiers divided the hot springs into sections. The cook brought out the white flour we carried, while others gathered wild vegetables, hunted game, pitched tents, and lit fires. We worked in shifts, resting between tasks. After soaking in the steaming hot springs, we emerged to roast chicken and dumplings. Having barely washed their faces in over a month, everyone could barely contain their urge to dive in. That night, I ventured deep into the dense forest. Just as I was about to shed my outer garments and enter the pool, a gust of wind swept through, dispersing the misty vapor. Only then did I notice him sitting cross-legged in the pool, bare-chested, motionless. He resembled a golden Buddha statue. I called out several times, but there was no response. I broke off a twig to poke him, and suddenly his eyes snapped open. He yanked me into the pool by the twig. Before I could scream, he grabbed my neck. Who's there? I splashed around. General, it's me. He immediately let go, his voice unsteady. What are you doing? Your Highness, how dare you be so disrespectful? Heaven be my witness. I only touched his chest because I lost my balance. It was no deliberate indecency. Disrespectful. The thought made me seethe. I wrapped my arms around his neck and drew close to his lips. Then ill bite through them again. He pushed me away and scrambled out of the pool in 3 strides. Your Highness is drunk. You should drink less in future. Annoyed, I retorted. General, did you shave your head to become a monk? His back stiffened at my words. After a moment's pause, he walked away. Soon after, Shanha arrived with dry clothes. By midnight, sobered, I regretted my words. We traveled in silence for days. As we neared Liangqing, I resolved to break the quiet. Stars twinkled in the sky as dry branches crackled in the fire. The general sat in meditation by the campfire. I was drunk that day. This journey is perilous. We must remain vigilant. Your Highness, please drink less. The atmosphere grew slightly awkward, so I asked the general the question buried deep in my heart for so long. How he avenged his parents' murder. He picked up a dry branch and tossed it into the flames, sparks dancing in his eyes. In the year Sinwei, he died by his own hand. I did not ask who he meant, the rebellious uncle, or my own father the emperor, or perhaps both. He had known for years, yet never once blamed anyone. The cold illness brought on by that great snowfall left him shivering through autumn and winter as if hugging snow and drinking ice. Yet even so, his blood remained fiery. He steadfastly guarded the northern frontier, determined to preserve an era of peace and prosperity on this fertile land. In the distance, the sun, large as a fist, slowly sank. Finally, The earth was left with only a pale, bluish-white glow. In the sunset, his face shone, clear, glorious. After leaving Liangqing Pass, everything changed. The land lay shattered, towns in ruins, traces of war and smoke lingered, untouched by any repair. The welcoming party was a detachment of the right Xianwang of the Hujie tribe. The leading officer stood arrogantly tall, bellowing to his men, "See that? Liang still knows its place. Does that Jiang kingdom think it can compete with our great king for a woman? But Liang is nothing but spineless cowards. Ha 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 ha. Princesses and princes. They're all just subjects beneath my Hujie's feet." I remained silent, pretending not to hear. The 300 Liang escort soldiers were barred from proceeding further, their ceremonial procession now taken over by the Hujie. Seated within my carriage, I witnessed a northern frontier resembling hell itself. After the fall of the 13 northern provinces, Liang citizens unable to flee south became the lowest caste outcasts. They went hungry, wore rags, sold their children into slavery, and toiled as servants. We passed through dozens of towns, large and small, each a grim reflection of this despair. I saw aged farmers, weighed down by burdens, driven forward by whips. I saw emaciated children begging along the streets. I saw courtesans pleading with Hujie soldiers for mercy, only to have their arms hacked off with a single stroke. Their lives were worth less than grass. 7 years have passed since the Sinwei year. I dare not imagine the hellish suffering they endured in this purgatory during those 7 years. It was clear the right wise prince intended for me to witness these scenes. It was both a show of force and a deliberate test. The general and I both held our tongues. The choice between saving one person or saving 10,000 was as simple as could be. Upon reaching the capital, I spotted the Longmen Palace towers from afar. That year, when I journeyed south with the general, I had cut my palm here, swearing an oath in blood. For 7 years, I trained relentlessly in martial arts and poison techniques, delved into the secrets of the Hujie, awaiting this very day. Outside the former northern Liang imperial palace, the Hujie king delivered his first warning. The palace attendant delivering his edict demanded I publicly strip off my Liang attire. Entering the palace clad only in my undergarments, he declared, "On Hujie soil, within Hujie halls, no Liang garments shall grace the throne room." Hujie soldiers whistled and jeered, waiting to mock my humiliation. I stepped from my carriage and stood before them with open arms. Shanhe and several maidservants approached to help me disrobe. The soldiers stared, stunned. I was the first princess to shed her garments without tears, shame, or fear. They whispered among themselves. As my outer robe fell to the ground, the crowd erupted in whistles and lewd laughter, only to abruptly cease. Beneath the finery lay a simple hemp robe, not the mere undergarments they'd imagined, leaving nothing to their leering eyes. Such humiliation had already been endured by the princesses of Chen and Zhan states. I was naturally prepared. The soldiers stared, their eyes filled with shock and disappointment. I turned to the ceremonial procession and declared, "Thank you all for accompanying me thus far. You may return now. Zhao Hua bids you farewell." I instructed the palace attendants who had come to greet me that I would enter the palace alone. I saw Mu Pingchuan's eyes filled with shock and incomprehension. "Shan," he knelt at my feet. "No, princess. I will not leave, even if it costs me my life." I patted Shan He's head. "Don't be foolish. Yangon is still waiting for you to return." Mu Pingchuan stepped before me, his voice urgent. "Your Highness, this monk has journeyed 1,000 miles to pray for the union of our two nations. How can you send me back empty-handed?" "Master Wuxin, blessings are not measured by distance. With sincere devotion, even from 1,000 miles away, the Buddha hears your prayers." A palace attendant bellowed. "Enough nonsense. The Princess of Liang shall accompany me to audience. The rest may wait here. If no summons comes within 7 days, you may disperse." I wrenched Shan's grasping hand from my robe and entered the palace alone. Beyond the palace gates lay a straight, broad avenue. At its end stood Changmen Gate. Changmen Tower stood as the capital's tallest fortress, visible even from beyond the imperial city walls. During the annual Lantern Festival, Father Emperor would light lamps here to pray for blessings. Receiving the kneeling homage of his subjects, I knew I would see his severed head displayed here. I had prepared myself. Yet when I lifted my gaze, the sight before me felt like a volley of arrows piercing straight into my eyes and through to my heart. Hanging upon the Changmen Gate were countless severed heads. Some had dried to the wind, others had become mere skulls. A gust of wind swept through, causing them to sway chaotically. Every pair of hollow eye sockets stared at me. I recalled my brother's birthday that year. When I fell from a tree, all the princes and princesses in the courtyard looked at me with smiling eyes, saying, "Little seventh, you're here." I recall my younger brothers handing me slingshots and pebbles, eager to compete with me in shooting the stone lions atop the Longmen Gate. I remember my sisters pulling me up the palace towers of Longmen, showing me the city's myriad lights, giggling as they asked which noble son I'd choose as my husband or perhaps the valiant General Mu. Now, they've been exposed to wind and sun, suspended here at Changmen for 7 long years. A chill ran through me, from the inside out. My head spun, my steps faltered. Suddenly, I heard the sound of chanting. Turning back, outside the palace gates, monks sat cross-legged on the ground, beads in hand, chanting sutras. Attendants knelt everywhere, bowing their heads in unison. Mu Pingchuan stood amidst the crowd. The north wind howled, his monk's robe billowing in the gale. The instant I turned back, the prayer beads clutched in his hand snapped apart. 108 sandalwood beads scattered across the ground. Blood spilled from the corner of his mouth, starkly vivid against his pallid face. He gazed at me, his eyes churning with 1,000 waves and 10,000 tides, mirroring his expression from that drunken night. What is real? What is false? At this moment, I finally had my answer. I read his lips clearly. He asked why. My general within this palace labyrinth. Each additional soul brings greater peril. The burden of my solitary obsession shall rest upon my shoulders alone. As for the general, should success come, the northern frontier still requires his hand to pacify. Should failure come, the southern frontier still requires his hand to defend. Moreover, that night in the hot spring pool, I felt his pulse. It was weak, floating, and chaotic. His outward calm was merely masked by potent drugs. He demanded I seize the map and flee the palace. But what of him? How could he possibly escape unscathed, venturing into this den of dragons and tigers? If I am a moth drawn to the flame, my death alone suffices. Others need not be dragged down with me. The palace attendant guiding me urged me on several times, steadying my steps. I lifted the hem of my hemp robe and walked step by step through the Longmen Gate. Step by step toward the grand hall. Within the hall, the king of Hujia sat enthroned, his laughter echoing throughout the chamber. Truly the daughter of General Hellenbold indeed. Earlier, I wagered with the right and left wise princes. The right wise prince Bet'd refused to board the carriage outside the city gates, while the left wise prince Bet'd faint at the Changmen Gate. It seems the princess of Liang possesses far more backbone than the men of Liang. His words drew laughter throughout the hall, even from several former Liang ministers who joined in. How could they not laugh? Surviving to this day had been no easy feat. I swiftly scanned the names written on that oiled paper. The king of Hujia was in a fine mood, allowing me to choose any palace I wished to reside in and even promising to grant me a wish. The former Liang ministers suggested several newly built palaces, claiming they were exceptionally comfortable. I politely declined, stating I wished to reside in the Changel Palace where my mother had once lived. As for my wish, your servant yearns for her deceased mother. Might I be permitted to visit her grave, set up an altar, burn incense and candles, and observe 7 days of mourning? King Hujia agreed. I had gambled that my mother held special meaning in his heart. I won. Her grave lay within Changel Palace itself. Hujia did not practice burial. A single fire reduced my mother to ashes. which were placed in a jade box and buried beneath the snow pine in this courtyard. My mother, who had yearned for freedom her entire life, was buried within the palace walls. The king of Hujie stood beside me and said, "Your mother was the only woman I ever loved. Yet she never loved me in return. She chose death over staying by my side to share this empire. I hope you understand better than she did. Only by accepting the emperor's grace can one enjoy happiness." I traced the 3 scars beneath my eyes. A bitter laugh rising within me. He loved her, so he slaughtered her people. He loved her, so he plundered her lands. He loved her, so he married her daughter. King Hujie declared the coronation ceremony for the new consort would be held in 7 days. The funeral rites lasted 7 days. Clothed in mourning white, I sat in the courtyard for 7 days. Each night, I vanished, seeking out the newly constructed palace to find the map detailing troop deployments and defenses. The former ministers of Liang would never reveal the palace's construction without reason. Yet after searching for several days, I found nothing. King Hujie was suspicious. Perhaps the location was changed periodically, but it didn't matter. I knew where else to find that map. On the 7th night, I slipped into Jinhua Palace in the dark. There resided the princess of the fallen state of Zhan. Many sought to kill King Hujie, those from fallen states and those still standing. The Zhan princess was the only woman who had repeatedly attempted his assassination yet lived to see this day. I suspect it was because she bore such a striking resemblance to my mother. Even that gaze 3 parts world-weary, 7 parts aloof was identical. She showed no surprise upon seeing me, pouring me my favorite osmanthus wine. I wasted no time, getting straight to the point. "Let's make a deal. You give me the map. I give you freedom." She leaned back in her chair, twirling a dagger. "You're even more naive and arrogant than I was 4 years ago. Do you know how I obtained that map? I attempted to assassinate him time and again, only to be pinned down before it and humiliated each time. I memorized it inch by inch, but every time I sent word, he'd bring back the messenger's severed head, urging me to spare my strength. What good was being trained as a spy? What good was burning with passion and facing death without fear? It all meant nothing against him. Give me freedom. Are you free yourself? Ha. I smiled. Whether I'm free depends on whether you're willing to give me this map. What good would it do you if you can't deliver it? It's all for naught. I downed 3 cups of wine in succession. Neither you nor I can deliver it. But there is one who can. She burst out laughing. The kingdom of Pan is already fallen. If I give you that map, am I letting the kingdom of Liang reap the benefits? Now I am the most favored one of the king of Hujie. Once I bear his heir, won't this world once again belong to my great kingdom of Pan? I sighed softly. You know you can never conceive. Why waste words on such pretense? Her complexion betrayed years of taking contraceptive potions. She stared at me in shock. I took a wooden hairpin, snapped it in 2, and pulled out a scroll of paper, sliding it toward her, seeing the handwriting and seal on the paper. Disbelief flashed in her eyes. My younger sister is still alive. I nodded. Not only her, but also your brother's 2 children. They are all in Liang Kingdom now, longing for your return. While the mountains remain, do not speak lightly of abandonment. Should this matter succeed, the Liang army will aid Her Highness the Princess in reclaiming the lands of Duan Kingdom. That night, I stood by the window holding a candle, gazing at the snow-covered cedar in the courtyard. My hand slipped, and the flame ignited a patch of wood. The wooden palace erupted in flames. I curled up in the firelight, covering my mouth and nose with a damp cloth, waiting. As the flames died down, King Hujie burst in. I fainted at just the right moment. In King Hujie's bedchamber, I lay foaming at the mouth, fever-ridden and delirious. First I cried out for my mother, weeping and laughing in turns. Then my voice turned cold as I murmured, "Ah he." The others paid no heed, but King Hujie's expression darkened, for the name I had called was the one he'd casually invented when he first met my mother. Ah he. Don't you know how utterly sick I am of this palace? Wall upon wall imprisons me, and you imprison me too. You know full well I am an eagle of the heavens, not a bird in a cage. Why must you confine me thus? Court physicians and shamans knelt before me. None with a cure. Naturally, it was a poison I had studied for years. I rambled on until King Hujia ordered my mother's ashes moved outside the palace, temporarily placed in the Great Enlightenment Temple. I fell gravely ill, and the consort investiture ceremony was naturally postponed, until the Lantern Festival arrived. The day before the Lantern Festival, King Hujia granted me a bath in the hot springs outside the palace. He said he wanted me to ascend the Changmen Palace Tower with him, to witness the lights of the realm lit for us alone. I knew what this meant, knew what would happen. Half naked, I sat in the pool, combing my long hair. In the bronze mirror by the pool's edge, the 3 crimson marks beneath my eyes looked strangely alluring. I drew my brows, applied lip gloss. 7 parts beauty, 10 parts allure. Throughout history, assassins at the side of the powerful have often been women of beauty, for it is precisely this allure that allows them to wield a blade with both seductive grace and deadly precision. The Princess of Xin once drew a long needle from beneath her inner bodice and thrust it toward the chest of the King of Hujia. Had it struck just 1 inch closer, it would have taken his life. A sudden chill swept through the mist, and a familiar figure gradually emerged from the haze. General, your skills are truly formidable. To move freely through the heavily guarded hot springs. Mu Pingchuan shed his black cloak, flinging it toward the poolside. Your Highness, it's time to go. This ends here. I tilted my head to look at him. Did you get the map? General, confirmed its authenticity. He nodded. As I rose from the water, he immediately turned his back. I draped a sheer veil over my shoulders and whispered, "The plan isn't complete yet. I want back down now." Obtaining the map merely gave the Liang army the first move. With such overwhelming odds against us, we cannot stretch our lines too thin. We must provoke internal strife among them, forcing them to fight on 2 fronts, then strike swiftly and decisively to seize victory. The rest is for me to handle. I shook my head. How will you do it? You know well that killing the King of Hujia would be far easier for me. He stood with his back to me, his voice muffled. I swear on my life, I shall not fail in my duty. Water droplets fell like threads from his damp hair, plopping into the water. I stepped out of the pool and walked behind the general. Could it be you cannot bear to see me submit to the King of Hujia? You care for me, yet dare not admit it. Is that not so? When did you first find yourself drawn to me? Surely not that night I pinned you to the bed. He spun abruptly, one arm wrapping around my waist, the other cradling the back of my head as he lowered his face. I thought he was about to kiss me, my breath catching in my throat. Instead, his breath halted against my face, his eyes as dark as ink staring straight into mine. Your Highness, if you wish to test my feelings, there is no need for such things. I tell you plainly now. I have long cherished you. My only wish in this life is for the realm to know lasting peace and for your Highness to remain unharmed. Your Highness, if you seek to use this marriage alliance to reclaim the northern border and avenge your mother, I will follow you through fire and water. But when you left me alone outside the palace gates, did you not realize you took half my life away in that moment? Therefore, Princess, consider this a gift of a few more days of life. Do not burden yourself with the weight of saving all living beings, so heavy that responsibility is for one person to bear alone. You still have me. You can trust me. Each word struck like thunder. My hands trembled as I touched his face. But my sole wish in this life is for the realm to endure in peace. And for you, my general, to remain unharmed. His eyes darkened, and he buried himself in a kiss that engulfed me, our lips and tongues entwined. Losing all sense of self, every fiber of my being trembled like fire. Then let us face it together. Whatever the outcome, I shall accompany you to the end. When this matter is settled, You shall no longer be a general. And I shall no longer be a princess. We shall go to where the spring river warms, roam hills and valleys, seek secluded beauty and explore hidden wonders. Is that not so? He answered. Yes. On the Lantern Festival. The former capital of Liang was aglow with lights. The imperial carriage passed through the palace gates onto the main avenue, lining both sides of the avenue. Kneeling in ragged clothes and heavy chains were the people of Liang. They had been released to witness the former princess of Liang in disgrace, being sealed as the consort of the king of Hujie, becoming his concubine. King Hujie promised me that after tonight, all the severed heads hanging upon the Longmen Gate would be removed and properly buried at a later date. Thus, monks from the Great Enlightenment Temple were invited into the palace to chant sutras for the repose of their souls. My carriage led the way, with Mu Pingchuan and his entourage following on foot. The carriage halted at the foot of the Longmen Gate, refusing to proceed further. Suddenly, commotion erupted outside, and I was overcome by a sense of foreboding. A dull thud of something heavy striking the ground echoed. I lifted the curtain and stepped out to find a scene of utter carnage before me. The man lying shattered before me was Zhou Qixing, who had secretly met with me just days prior to deliver the palace's weaponry inventory map. Servants lay collapsed in a heap, some retching, others weeping. From atop the gate, King Hujie looked down upon us as if observing a swarm of ants, bellowing, "You ungrateful, untamed wolves! You lowly subjects of Liang, open your eyes wide and see clearly. This is the fate of those who dare defy and rebel against my Hujie." I clenched my sleeves, dismounted, and knelt. Your Majesty is wise and mighty. How could we dare not show respect? Before my words faded, stones, mud, and unidentifiable sticky substances pelted my body. Mu Pingchuan and a group of monks shielded me from behind, deflecting much of the barrage. A Liang citizen shouted, "Princess, do you see the suffering of us northerners? Has the Liang emperor long forgotten us? The Hujie slaughtered countless of our people, yet you, princess, married the enemy and bowed to them as a vassal. Do you even know how to write the word shame?" I turned to see a gaunt youth, his right eye the only intact one, glaring at me with fury from the crowd. Before the Hujie soldiers could draw their blades, I silently unleashed a palm strike, sending him crashing into the crowd. I roared, "Ignorant brat! Have you no sense of the times? This world now belongs to the Hujie. Is that not clear to you?" My display greatly pleased the Hujie king. When I ascended the city tower, he sat lazily upon the highest dragon throne, watching the dancers sway gracefully in the banquet pool. The princess of Zhan sat beside him, her face pale. I knew it was all meant to intimidate me, just as it had once intimidated the princess of Yao. Even knowing we harbored ulterior motives, he seemed unconcerned, so utterly confident that no one in this realm could challenge him. I knelt gracefully. "Your Majesty, may I offer the dance of worshipping the Buddha?" He regarded me and the monk behind me with keen interest, chuckling. "A Buddhist dance? Never heard of it. How intriguing." The right-wise prince seated beside him and the assembled ministers all shot me hostile glances. The exposure of the former Liang Kingdom minister's theft of the scrolls inevitably implicated me. Everyone knew this dance was merely a pretext for my true intentions. Fortunately, King Hujie was arrogant enough. The monks and I entered the banquet pool. They shifted formations, encircling me in a swirling dance. Mu Pingchuan, clad in monk's robes, sat within the pool chanting sutras. Beside him, I danced gracefully in a posture of reverence, spinning ceaselessly. My skirt flared wide like a whirling umbrella. King Hujie watched us with a dark, fierce gaze, his eyes already leaking murderous intent. No doubt he knew about the hot spring incident. Had held it in, waiting for today to kill us both, just as he had done to my mother all those years ago. Mother was so resilient, so yearning for freedom. She endured over a decade within the palace walls, waiting only for father's passing to be released. Imprisoned there, she once told me. There are no permanent dead ends in this world. Only those who despair of them. What she experienced that day atop the palace walls, leading her to leap without hesitation. I shall never know. Mu Pingchuan's voice murmured softly behind me. Karma comes full circle. This life reaps what was sown. This Sanskrit phrase he had recited to me countless times aboard the southbound ferry, during those endless nights of nightmares. As he spoke, we both leapt forward simultaneously, one thrust aimed at the right wise prince, the other at the king of Hujie. The remaining monks each targeted their own foes, though the Hujie forces were prepared. The warrior monks accompanying the general were all formidable warriors. Those with lesser skills were swiftly subdued. Only the right-wise king managed to engage the general in a fierce struggle. As for me, my sleeve dagger shattered instantly under the Hujie king's strike. He seized my throat, gazing at me as if I were mere prey. The daughter of General Helan proves utterly useless. How dare you flaunt such petty tricks before me? The princess of Zhongguo rushed to save me, only to be knocked to the ground by his palm strike. Back then, you charged at me with your sword, just as recklessly overconfident. Did you know I was no match for your mother? Had you not offered yourself as a human shield, I'd never have had the chance to hold her hostage. He eased the pressure on his palm, his voice dripping with mockery. So, you see, it was you who killed her. I didn't capture you back then, but now you've come to me willingly. Why don't you think about how Iltrish you tonight? I coughed violently, my words coming out in fits and starts. My mother once said something about you. King Hujie released his grip, flinging me back onto the dragon throne as he waited for me to continue. I laughed as I scrambled to my feet. She said you're even less fit to be human than my father. The very thought of you sickens her. King Hujie's eyes widened in fury. His palm shot out to strike me, but before it reached me, he suddenly gasped for breath. He stared at me in horror, snarling. I watched him with a cold smile and shouted, Mother, brothers and sisters, if you are here, come and witness this. Today, I, Huar, come to avenge you. King Hujie clutched his throat, his face flushing crimson as he rolled to the ground, clawing at himself. How could he have imagined I knew even his secret, his intolerance to purple dandelion? My entire gown was coated in a specially concocted purple dandelion powder, undetectable as poison. It would make him wish for death. Below the banquet pool, Mu Pingchuan had already slain the infamous war criminal, the right Xian king of the Hujie tribe, the very man who had slaughtered Liang civilians like cattle and sheep in his camp. All the most powerful Hujie nobles were subdued. The warrior monks fought their way through, securing complete control over the entire Changmen Palace tower. Mu Pingchuan approached me, brushing the dirt from my robes before glancing at the Hujie prince writhing on the ground. Let me kill him. Don't soil your highness' hands. I clasped his hand and shook my head gently. Such a swift death would be too easy for him. Below the Changmen, the Hujie Imperial Guard commander had already surrounded the palace tower with his men. They couldn't descend, and we couldn't descend. The general drew his bow, each arrow claiming a life. The Changmen gate stood too high, their forces too weak that arrows simply couldn't reach us. The Hujie soldiers, hunched over, dragged Liang civilians before them and shouted, Liang scum, release our emperor at once, or it'll leave you with no place to bury your dead. We remained locked in this standoff for a long time. Below the palace tower, the imperial guards began arranging dry grass, intending to use thick smoke to force our surrender. We waited for a signal, the signal that the Liang army had captured the southern suburbs of the capital. Perhaps it would come in a few hours, perhaps in days, perhaps never. The general and I sat side by side on the city tower, gazing at the full moon in the sky. If this mission proves futile and costs us our lives, will you regret it, General? He gently stroked the hair at my temple, his voice soft and calm. For you, I would never regret it. I leaned lightly against his shoulder. The general has no regrets. But I do. I regret not seeing through your true feelings sooner. He chuckled softly. It's not too late. It's just right. Then he added, Your Highness, might we change how we address each other? General is too common. Do you know how many generals serve the great Liang? Call me Zichong. Would that be acceptable? Then you must not call me Your Highness either. What would you prefer I call you? Let me think. The Princess of Jin cleared her throat. Gentlemen, I don't mean to be a killjoy, but this king of Huji, are you going to kill him or not? If you don't, I will. The king of Huji lay beaten beyond recognition, his flesh torn and bloodied. Had he not been bound by chains, he might well have begged for death. Why the rush, sister? I asked with a smile. Delay invites trouble. The Imperial Guard numbers in the tens of thousands. We're only a handful. How could we ever escape? We're trapped now. At least we can kill him before we die. That's some small satisfaction. I stood up, looking at her intently. Sister, I always keep my word. You gave me the map. Even if it costs me my life, I will secure your freedom. She stared at me with disbelief, sword in hand, advancing toward the Hujie king. I blocked her path, hoisting the unconscious Hujie king by the collar and carrying him to the city wall. Beneath the Longmen Gate, dry firewood was piled 3 layers deep, inner and outer. Sparks had already ignited fires spreading in all directions. Mu Pingchuan once said, Kneeling won't avenge us. Now I stood tall, watching the Hujie soldiers setting fires below and the Liang people shackled in chains. Citizens of Great Liang beneath these walls, I have words to share with you all. The general helped pin the Hujie king against the ramparts, gazing at me with tender eyes. Below the ramparts, the Liang people erupted in commotion as they saw me emerge, leading the Hujie king who had so recently flaunted his power. For over 7 years, the Hujie tribe has occupied our lands and dishonored our people, traveling from the southern borders of Great Liang. I witnessed firsthand the hellish ordeal my people endure to survive. The young have no sustenance, the aged no support. They lack food to fill their bellies, clothing to cover their bodies. All along, I pondered, who is responsible for this? Is it the brutal king of Hujie, or my own senile father? My father is not a fit emperor. He occupies the throne yet neglects its duties. The fall of Liang's northern border, half the blame rests upon him. To speak a treasonous word, his death for the nation was hardly a pity. But what guilt do the children bear? Over 20 princes and princesses of the Liang dynasty, the youngest still in swaddling clothes, remain hung upon these very walls to this day, exposed to wind and sun, denied rest. What guilt do the people of Great Liang bear when enemy nations invade? Why must millions of common folk suffer such poverty and degradation? At this point, Liang citizens rose to their feet, performing the ritual of allegiance to the Liang state before me. Earlier, someone claimed the Emperor of Liang had abandoned the northern frontier, disregarding the lives of its people. This is utterly false. For 7 years, the Emperor of Liang has worked tirelessly, day and night, dedicating himself to governance without the slightest slackening. Though the lands south of the river are rich, since ascending the throne, he has never worn brocaded robes or feasted on delicacies. His daily expenses are no different from those of ordinary people. He always says that as long as the subjects of the northern frontier remain unreturned, he cannot rest easy. Thus, he lives frugally and disciplines himself daily, setting an example for the nation, striving only to fill the treasury and launch a northern campaign as soon as possible. General Mu Pingchuan of the northern frontier has trained his troops relentlessly, enduring wind and rain, ready for battle at a moment's notice. Despite suffering from a chronic illness, he has guarded the northern frontier for 7 unbroken years, repeatedly venturing deep into enemy territory, risking his life in the fray. Minister Zhou Qixing of Liang, though his wife and children perished at the hands of the Hujie, he endured humiliation for 7 years, infiltrating the Hujie king's inner circle to relay vital intelligence to our Liang forces. Just moments ago, he was hurled from this very tower by the Hujie king, yet uttered not a single cry. Such loyal ministers and valiant generals number in the thousands across the southern frontiers. Countless subjects stand united as one, all for this very day. Hearing this, a Liang citizen rose, approached the body of Lord Zhou Qixing, and smeared blood across his own face. The surrounding Hujie guards shouted orders, but the enraged Liang man dragged one into the crowd by the throat with the chains on his wrists. Do you all remember the Lantern Festival in Liang's capital 7 years ago? I remember. That year, beneath these very gates, a youth performed, declaring his lifelong dream was to serve the nation and repel the Hujie. Just now, beneath these gates, I saw him again, emaciated, clad in rags, missing an eye, his neck and arms shackled with iron chains, yet even so, he still had the spirit to spit at me and curse me for lacking integrity. In that moment, I felt profound comfort. The people of Great Liang never bend their spines. With youths like this, how could we fear that Great Liang will never rise again? Life is a sea of suffering, and we are all in the same boat. If we wish to break through the waves and survive, we must strive to row and hoist our sails. I, Princess Zhao Hua of Great Liang, swear this oath. Even if I die fighting within these imperial walls, I shall reclaim the northern frontier and restore your freedom. People of Great Liang, will you join me? Shatter these chains, break these shackles, storm the city gates, welcome the Liang army, slay the invaders, and seize our liberty. The youth who had just hurled stones and spat at me sprang to his feet, bellowing, "For the princess! For Great Liang! For freedom! Let's fight them to the death!" With that, he lunged furiously at a nearby Hujie soldier. Instantly, a tidal wave of shouts erupted below. The Liang citizens, shackled in chains, seized their fetters as weapons and charged furiously at the Hujie soldiers, who were nearly frozen in terror. Water can carry a boat, but it can also overturn it. When the first roar of fury erupts, it becomes a towering tidal wave ready to overturn the vessel. This has been true since ancient times. In the distance, a streak of crimson fireworks exploded across the horizon. My imperial brother had personally led his troops to the rescue. Mu Pingchuan and I exchanged a glance. He released his grip. I murmured slowly into the Hujie king's ear, "I came merely to show my mother the flowers of Jiangnan and the Winzhou. F. Northern Yunnan. Killing you is but a side matter." The Hujie king's eyes widened suddenly. He flailed wildly in midair before plummeting from the tower. A gust of wind stirred, causing the severed heads hanging high on the city wall to tremble. 2 years later, at a shipyard in Jiangnan, Mu Pingchuan lit a stove aboard the ship. One pot simmered tea, another fried fish. I gathered sun-dried osmanthus blossoms along the shore, planning to brew some osmanthus wine and make osmanthus cakes. Some for ourselves, some to sell. Wed drifted here these past days, captivated by the scenery, and lingered longer than planned, brewing wine from pine blossoms, steeping tea in spring water. Bliss like immortals, we sought the most serene spot to scatter the ashes of my mother and elder siblings. As we prepared to sail onward, before boarding, the sound of urgent hoofbeats drew near. In the dawn light, amidst the autumn breeze, a tall steed charged against the light. Its rider's hearty laughter carried on the breeze. "Ah Hua, Zicheng, we agreed to write monthly why no letter this month. I've been waiting impatiently." Mu Pingchuan knew the emperor had been inspecting this region lately and had already poured tea, awaiting his arrival. "Your Majesty seems in high spirits lately, not weighed down by state affairs." "You say that? You lot just dropped everything and left, leaving this lonely old man here." "How terribly lonely. I picked a piece of tender fish for the emperor." "Your Majesty is being unreasonable. In the northern campaign, we were the foremost contributors. How many enemies did we subdue without a fight? How many Liang citizens did we save? How much silver did we spare the imperial treasury? Have you counted it all? We accomplished decades worth of work in one fell swoop. Besides, consider the Yangon general promoted by Zicheng and the youth I recommend. They both exceptional talents, each worth 100 men. Let His Majesty enjoy his secret satisfaction. Ah, your days of wandering mountains and rivers are truly enviable, but having renounced your titles, you refuse silver or property, rejecting even estates and servants. Can such utter poverty truly bring contentment? Mu Pingchuan smiled, gazing at the clear waves and the rising sun over the river. The finest things in this world are truly free. Quar is preparing to open a tavern called Bitter End right here on this boat. When patrons come, well, brew a pot of wine. Engage in a while of pleasant conversation. And earning enough for our daily bread won't be difficult. I replied earnestly. Today's peace across the land is largely thanks to your Majesty's wise rule. Yet your Majesty must persevere tirelessly. For only then can ordinary folk like us live without fear or worry. Should our lives ever grow difficult, it will be a sign of your Majesty's neglect. If such a day comes, please do not stubbornly persist. Instead, seek out a capable and energetic successor to govern the realm. Then, your Majesty, you may join us sooner in seeking solace amidst the mountains and waters. My brother detected the boldness in my words. Yet he did not grow angry. You seem quite suited for such matters. I have indeed grown lax today. While you remain full of vigor, why not have you and Zichong handle the locust plague in the south for me? Let me relax here on this small boat, listening to the rain and fishing for a couple of days. I waved my hand dismissively. Your Majesty knows how to use people well. With so many capable generals and officers at your side, why would you need us? We are not like you, a diligent ox who labors without complaint and finds contentment in it. Besides, during the marriage alliance negotiations, you promised me that once the matter was settled, you would grant me and the general freedom in the world. Our joy does not lie within the palace walls. But in this hastily composed poem I drew a handkerchief from my sleeve and unfolded it. A few days ago, as we lay in our boat admiring the rain, Mu Pingchuan penned the first 2 lines, and I wrote the last 2. Spring waters bluer than the sky, on painted boats. We sleep to the sound of rain. Fish and shrimp remain in the jars. 4 hours of pure delight. For the rest of my life, I ask only this: to traverse towering peaks and meet flowing streams beneath peach blossoms. To pass through 1,000 cliffs vying for beauty, admiring clouds steaming and sunsets glowing. To see mountains, rivers, and the world's affairs. To know wind, rain, and the peace of times. My fleeting wish, may the land forever be at peace, and my beloved remain unharmed. End of main text extra. Mu Pingchuan. I knew Ah Hua long before she knew me. Shortly after Ah Hua was born, my mother brought me to the palace to see her, teasing me that she would be my future wife. Standing by Lady Lan's bedside, I poked Ah Hua's rosy cheek and asked, "Mother, can I take my wife with me to the northern frontier?" Lady Lan smiled, then suddenly tears streamed down her face. Mother held her hand and whispered words I couldn't understand. Later, the 3rd Prince of Hujie ascended the throne, abandoning his predecessor's policy of tribute and peace. He repeatedly harassed our borders. Skirmishes and battles raged constantly, and I stayed at the frontier with my parents for over a decade. Mother and Lady Lan exchanged letters often. After reading each one, she would reminisce with me about General Helenon, swift as wind and lightning, pure as frost and snow. Sometimes, Mother would tease me playfully. Zichong, our Mu family bride, can climb trees now. She composes poetry. She steams sugar cakes. I would always slam the book shut in annoyance and run out to ask Father to settle the matter. I'd only seen her once as an infant. How old was I then? How could my life already be decided? Later, His Royal Highness the Crown Prince was sent to the frontier for training. He was a few years older than me, mature and steady, not one for many words. Yet whenever he spoke of his mischievous 7th sister, his eyes would light up. She excels at crafting ingenious toys, pigeon carts, Lu Ban locks, anything she can devise. Her younger siblings adore her. She always says that having food and drink, free from worries, is the ultimate joy in this world. She constantly pleads with me, saying that once I hold power, I must let her leave the palace to fish on the misty rivers of the southern lands. At 16, after distinguishing myself in battle, His Majesty summoned me back to the capital to report my achievements. On the Crown Prince's birthday, I saw her again. Dappled light filtered through broad-leaved trees. Clad in pale blue robes, she stood like a solitary orchid in a secluded valley, blooming defiantly in the wind. She fell from the tree, covered in mud, clutching a kite and saying, "If I say I came to retrieve a kite, would you believe me?" For her mischief, she was punished by Consort Lan to kneel in the Buddhist hall. The Crown Prince went to intercede, and I followed. After accidentally entering the hall, I heard her pulling a young eunuch, asking his name and which noble house he served. Even now, I vividly recall that feeling, me heart pounding with anxiety, dreading the eunuch might blurt out something untrue. Yet I never exchanged more than a few words with her. After returning to the northern frontier, whenever mother mentioned the Mu family's bride, I no longer grew angry. Instead, a subtle, elusive, mist-like stirring took root within me. 2 years of wind, frost, rain, and snow passed. One day atop the city walls, I asked my father when we might return to the capital. He gazed at the setting sun in the distance and murmured, "Zichong. I never asked if you wish to be a soldier. If you dislike it, you may follow your heart henceforth. Life is short, do not let yourself regret." I did not know then that he had been falsely accused by bandits and had already received the imperial decree of punishment. On the full moon day of the 12th lunar month, my father and mother were burned alive at a relay station while returning to the capital. When I knelt outside the grand hall, my heart lay barren. Father had said he and the emperor had been childhood playmates, trusting each other most deeply. Yet the emperor refused even to hear my plea for discernment. The answer lay plain for all to see, both laughable and tragic. The birds had not yet flown when the fine bough was sheathed, for fear that its sharpness might wound both others and its own maker. Ah Hua brought me a great cloak and a portable stove. In the snowy night, our gazes met. On the long avenue leading out of the palace, she watched me from behind. Yet those youthful, naive stirrings seemed to vanish overnight. In the year Sinwei, Prince Shun colluded with the Hujie tribe. The palace coup unfolded in a single night. By then, I was no longer with the Liang army, but traveling the land with my uncle's caravan. When the palace coup erupted, I was in the outskirts of the capital. The wheel of fate turned. All who had wronged my parents perished in that grand hall. Yet the northern frontier of Liang, once fiercely defended by the Mu family's army, met its doom. The most innocent victims were the common folk, struggling to survive. I led the caravan members, doing all we could to evacuate before the city was slaughtered. Beyond the palace walls, I witnessed Lady Lan leap from the Changmen Gate and heard King Huji's heart-wrenching howl behind her. Lady Lan was Liang's first female general, a formidable warrior whose arrows never missed their mark. Even my father could not match her skill on horseback. My mother said General Helan's life was marred by 2 arrows. The first arrow was shot on a mountain ridge, scattering the hairpin of the 3rd prince of Hujie. That prince, who called himself Ahe, claimed to be a lost traveling merchant. They rode horses, admired flowers, drew bows to hunt wild geese, and nearly pledged their lives to each other. But when the prince stole the map of Liangqing, he vanished without a trace. General Helan was consequently stripped of her military rank. The second arrow fell in the forest, slaying a raging black bear. She had been wandering the mountains alone when she inadvertently rescued the emperor, who was traveling incognito. Impressed by her extraordinary nature, he immediately issued an edict summoning her to the palace. The woman who once soared on horseback, shooting arrows in the wind, now saw her skirt and robes unfurl once more. Only this time, it marked the descent of her life. Had my mother still been alive, she would have grieved deeply. For some reason, the bright face that once graced the broadleaf trees floated before my eyes. After leaving the palace, I never once thought of her. Yet now, her image came back to me with crystal clarity. Was she still alive? Heaven soon gave me the answer. After saving her, I discovered she was quite different from what I had imagined. I didn't know she too possessed martial arts skills. Didn't know her spirit was so resilient. And certainly didn't know her heart held the welfare of all people, vast and lofty, as we rescued others along the way. The two children we saved, one stayed by my side, the other by hers. She named them, one Shanha, the other Yangon. She said this fulfilled one of her two greatest wishes in life. When I asked what the other was, she wouldn't say. Probably revenge, I suppose, on the frozen river. She asked if I would marry her someday. I declined her gently, because I couldn't marry her. I lacked the impulses and desires expected of a man. That cold disease struck with such ferocity that the doctor said I might never be able to consummate a marriage. My uncle, unwilling to see the Mu lineage extinguished, took me far and wide in search of cures. We consulted countless physicians, even resorting to potent aphrodisiacs and seductive dancers in attempts to awaken me. All proved futile. How could such a broken vessel ever wed a princess? The only thing I could do was strive to fulfill her wishes to the best of my ability. The princess was an intensely determined soul. Each time she sent osmanthus wine, it was a carefully measured medicinal concoction. Each letter or sketch she delivered depicted recent joys. The northern frontier's wind cut like ice. Yet clutching her notes, my heart warmed like spring's first sun. Mother once said, in this world, the more unattainable something is, the more people desire it. The king of Hujia is like this. And so was the late emperor. But I am not like that. Nor is the princess. She desires me. Yet she is not blinded by love alone. When I learned that both Jianghua and Hujia had sent marriage proposals, I struggled to control myself. Yet my hand trembled uncontrollably as I held the brush. Yangon thought my cold had flared up again. I knew she would choose Hujia. No matter how her imperial brother tried to stop her, she would go. She held me in her heart. Yet when it came to matters of state and the grand scheme of vengeance, she would inevitably cast me aside. After all, for 7 years, she had prepared for this day. Every single day. Everything, every single thing, I saw it all. His Majesty said I was the only one who could change her mind. He was wrong. I cannot. The irony is, this is precisely why I love her so deeply. She is so different from me, yet so similar. Without peace for our nation, what room is there for personal affection? She knows it. I understand it to share this unspoken truth. Yet she remains conflicted, reluctant to let go. Beneath the osmanthus tree, she drank cup after cup until she passed out drunk. I carried her into the carriage and sent her back to her residence. Right there in the carriage, she kissed me fiercely, kissing and biting, crying and clinging. She pulled at my clothes, her voice choked with tears. You've done nothing wrong. Yet you've become my greatest torment. How can I harden my heart to marry another and leave our unfinished business behind? Why not take me today, so I may depart in peace? Her movements were clumsy and unrestrained, yet they set me ablaze. For the first time in my life, I felt a physical urge. At such an inopportune moment, the next day, I went to Lingzhou Temple. I told her I would not be her stumbling block. Instead, I would be her stepping stone. Together, we would fulfill our fleeting worldly obsession. Yet outside the palace gates, she abandoned me. Entering the demon's lair alone, that glance back spoke volumes. 10,000 miles behind, the old friend forever severed, perhaps overcome by sudden fury. I pathetically coughed up blood. The turbulent emotions in my eyes, she saw them all. My heart's secrets could no longer be concealed. I heard myself say, never mind. Then I shall hide them no longer. From that day forward, even if heaven collapsed and earth split, mountains crumbled and seas raged, nothing could tear us apart. Spring of the Guiyu year. Over a year had passed since the Bitter End Tavern opened its doors. We've made friends from all corners of the land. Fishmongers and shrimp sellers, scholars and poets, mountain toppers and water seekers, Zen practitioners and Taoists, the wealthy and the penniless, those riding high in officialdom and those failing the imperial exams time and again, each with their own passions, each with their own troubles. Her Majesty called us small boats sailing away, entrusting our remaining years to the rivers and seas, saying we cast off and turned our backs on worldly affairs. But that's not quite it. I understand her. The heights of the imperial court are veiled in drifting clouds. The world cannot be avoided. She merely transformed herself into an I rooted among the common folk. Only by dwelling within these mountains does one know the ruggedness of their paths. In the dead of night, Ah Hua whispered to me, asking when my heart had first stirred for her. I only held her close, kissing her deeply. I still remember that year, when spring was still bitterly cold. She practiced swordplay in the courtyard. Book in hand, Shanhe asked her why a princess of such noble birth would toil so hard. Harder than any man, she replied, when it comes to matters of state and the people. What difference is there between high and low, noble and base, man and woman? The sages of old said, to establish a heart for heaven and earth, to establish a destiny for the people, to carry on the lost teachings of the ancient sages, to open an age of peace for all generations. My heart yearns for this. I must put it into practice.